Want to welcome you to our Animal Sciences, Department of Animal Sciences, which involves both the Animal Sciences and Equine Sciences parent orientation session. My name is Kim Grubbs, and I'm an Academic Success Coordinator here in the department that works with both animal and equine science students, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm going to let the rest of my colleagues introduce themselves as well. Steph, do you want to go first?
Oh, sorry.
Nope, sorry.
Hi, my name is Kayla Dwyer. I'm also an ASC in the department, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Steph, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steph Lepsak. I'm also an Academic Success Coordinator here in the Department of Animal Sciences. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Bella?
Hi, my name is Belle Quita. I am an advising assistant in the department, and my pronouns are also she, her, and hers. Go ahead, Esme.
Hi, I'm Esmeralda, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am an advising assistant.
And then we're also honored to be joined by Dr. Noah Roman-Muñez and Dr. Terry Engel, who is an Associate Director of the department as well. And so we'll pull up our PowerPoint presentation. So we put together this session as an opportunity to work with parents and really talk about how we partner with parents in this process of your students joining us here at CSU. So with working with John Henderson in the Parent and Family Program here at Colorado State University, he really talks about it as another form of driver's education, in that we are going to invite your student to join along with us in the driver's seat for this experience. And we, as the support systems here in the department, are going to sit in the passenger seat. And we're going to invite you along through this process in the back seat as part of kind of to listen and to hear what your students are doing, and kind of have some of the information and then be able to follow up with them afterwards about what they've heard. So that's really them getting to experience, probably if they've already experienced the one time of driver's education, when they were getting their driver's license and everything. This is a new form, and so we look forward to working with you all in this partnership.
What is that? If you have any questions, type them in the chat.
So as we are lucky enough that we have two of our leaders in the department here with us. We have Dr. Terry Engel, the Associate Department Head, and Dr. Roman-Muñez, that's the Director of Undergraduate Programs, and also serves as the supervisor for all of the academic advisors and support coordinators in this department, as well as we're led by Dr. Keith Belk. And we have all three advisors, academic success coordinators here on the session today. So there's me, Steph, and Kayla that are academic success coordinators. And then we are pleased to have joined with Isabella and Esme this year in helping us as we're having some great growth and some great opportunities here in the department to help support students. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to talk about, and this is one of the reasons why on the postcard that we had sent out, that we were encouraging people, to parents and families, to join this session possibly before their students register for their classes, but not required. So part of this process was to kind of give everybody an idea of what the registration process was going to look like and is going to look like, so that you can help us in that partnership to prepare your students as best as possible to be ready for these sessions. As each advisor every day is put into a breakout Zoom session with about 4 to 5 students. And so having the students come in prepared as best as possible will really help them in animal and equine sciences, one of the core classes that we get them into their first semester, unless they're bringing in some previous biology coursework, would be our Life 102. So as that is one of the most sought after classes on campus, we have about 10 minutes to get students into that class before those sections start filling up. And so if we have students have all of their holds and are ready to jump in there with, they've submitted their advising code, then they'll be ready to jump right in. So right off the bat, we'll jump in. It'll seem a little bit crazy to the students in the beginning as we will jump into Life 102. And then once we get everybody in the 102, Life 102, we will have them either register for ANEQ 101, which is our large food animal science class, or ANEQ 102 for our equine science students. That's Introduction to Equine Sciences. Once we get through that process of the registration period, then things can kind of slow down, ask individual questions, and start talking about how we're going to fill the individual student's placement from there. But up until that point, everybody is going to register for those classes unless they're bringing in transfer credits that are going to fulfill those two requirements. So the students after this registration session will have the ability and have the information about how to contact advisors to help follow up on any questions that might arise between the time they register and school starting in the fall. So we really make it apparent to them. They'll receive an email from us beforehand, so they'll have that contact information, and we encourage them that if questions arise, that they should feel free to email us afterwards. So as individuals that are here to support your students in this process, what you want to do if they're coming in for registration is ask them if they have all of their red X's that are located on the front page of their RAM web account fulfilled. And then that will allow them that once we jump into this registration session, that there won't be any reason that we would have to hold them up to not being able to jump right into registering for those classes. So that's the number one thing that will really help them. The other one is in the email that we send them ahead of time, it will give them directions about if they need to finish the math placement tool or the English self-directed, what are we calling it this year? English self-directed placement, as well as if they're interested in prerequisites for vet school of whether or not we are encouraging them to complete chem prep before school starts in the fall. So the math and the English one needs to be done, or will hold them up from being able to register for the classes that they need on registration day. So encouraging them to do the math placement tool and the English self-directed placement before registration. And ideally, they're doing it well before 24 hours, because sometimes it can take up to 24 hours for that to clear their account for them to register for those classes. And then I think I'm having my section that the registration session is really not set up for a place for parents and families to really be involved in and be able to ask questions, because of the timeline that we have discussed here, that we're on such a time crunch to be able to get a group of students in, and it's typically, like I said, 4 to 5 students at a time. And so if we have individual families that are trying to ask questions, it's going to hold up the rest of our students from being able to get into classes. So that's why we, in looking at trends, both as with parents and families, as well as responding to COVID experience, that's why we created these sessions that would really give us more opportunity to answer those questions for parents and families up front. So this is what, in working with defining the partnerships of a student and advisor, this is Sanford's model for student advising and student development through the year. So if you can see, we really will work with the students on balancing the level of challenge that they're experiencing with the level of support that we provide for them. And so you could see at the beginning of the year, we're going to start a lot more with more support with the challenges that they face. And that by the end of this school year, that level of challenge and support is really going to look different if we're doing things correctly. So both us as advisors and people in the department, that includes faculty and administrators, as well as working with their parents and family, that we encourage this model of meeting the students of where they're at in their development and meeting them on that support level and not doing so much so that we can end up having them with a fair amount of growth by the end of the year. So the expectations is that the student will initiate communication with their advisors. So if your student needs to, and you're kind of coaching your student on emailing their advisor, they're welcome to carbon copy the CC, the parent on the email to the advisor. I would just caution you that just because you're CC'd on the email doesn't necessarily mean that parents will be CC'd back from the advisor. So the expectation is that you would follow up with the students, you know the timeline of when they sent the email, and then following up with them about whether or not they've heard back from the advisor within a timely manner. And if they have not, then they can follow back up with us to have that conversation. And I would encourage you as parents and family to, if the students get the message back and they're not really understanding or they need clarity, then they should absolutely follow up with the advisors, as we're here to really help them know and understand what they're experiencing. And they should know their support systems. We all have open advising advisors, as well as faculty members have open advising hours, and we would encourage them to attend those sessions. So a fair amount of our students will come in, as it says, about 90% of our students will enter into animal and equine sciences with the idea of wanting to pursue prerequisites for vet school applications. With the actuality of about around 10% of the students will end up applying for vet schools. And one of the reasons why that occurs, there's that big difference between them entering with the idea of vet school as well as how many actually go through with applying, is a couple different things. The rigor along the way, it is a very difficult process and very competitive to get into vet school. But I think the second biggest reason is that students, once they're in our programs, realize that there are actually a significant amount of careers that are involved by having a degree in animal and equine sciences. So many students come in with thinking that you're either going to be a rancher or you're going to be a veterinarian, and those are the careers in working with animals. And along the way, they're going to find that there are many careers once they start taking the nutrition and the breeding and the reproduction and genetics and diseases classes, that they really have their eyes open to a whole level of other careers that they never even knew existed. And so that's really exciting when they start to figure out what part of animal science are they really passionate about. So the students will have access to the academic success coordinators within the Department of Pre-Health Advising as well. And we often will encourage the students to have that resource available to them, but all of the academic advisors are familiar with the prerequisites for vet school and can help them through that process as well. And so there's a couple different methods for them and information for them to hear through this process. So last year we initiated the first time that we brought together some of our DVMs within the department, as well as we have individuals in our department that have sat on the CSU Vet School Selection Committee. And so we will plan on that. We just discussed that today, about a couple of days, that we are thinking about having that, and we will be letting students know right off the bat that if they are interested in pursuing their prerequisites for vet school, that they should plan on attending that session. It'll give them a great opportunity to see names and faces of people that they will see throughout their time in our department that have walked that journey before, and they can talk to them about their specialized areas and encourage them for different paths that they should consider as they're starting to go through with whether or not they're going to apply for vet school. But coming into the session for you as parents and families, it's really critical for you to encourage your student, if this is a journey that they want to go on, that they really should complete the chem prep placement over the summer months, because they'll need to have that chem prep completed before they can take chemistry 111 and 112. That is a requirement to move through the prerequisites of the vet school application process. Students will report back to us that it can take anywhere between 5 to 9 hours to complete that assessment. And if they wait until it's time to register come October or November, then they're actually should be working on studying for their midterm exams. So we as a department are very proactive in trying to send the students the links and encouraging them to have that done over the summer months, when the possibility of their bandwidth looks a lot different than it might in the end of October. So this is just a short list of the careers that are available in just some of the careers that are available with an animal and equine science major. And so you can see that there is a lot more than either rancher or veterinarian. And we just want to kind of give you that idea, and that your student is going to also be hearing about these in the next year, about different career opportunities. So we're going to open it up at this time, both for the questions that have been submitted into the chat, or you're more than welcome to be live with us to ask a question. I will say that we are recording this session, and so if you are interested in receiving the recording of information after we're done, if you will put your email in this chat session here, we'll follow up with a link for you to have this session afterwards. So I'm gonna look to my tech guru. Kayla, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do. We have a couple. So the first question is, how long does the math and English assessment take? So the comp survey is pretty quick. It takes roughly maybe like 15 minutes. It really is just a little survey that a student will go through, and it just indicates whether or not you're comfortable in composition. So it's not long and tedious. The math takes a bit longer. Typically, we recommend that students do some studying and some prep before they take the tool. That way they're prepared. They go in. It's not what I did as a first-year student, like the night before orientation was like, what up? Let me go ahead and just turn this sucker in, and then I didn't place into anything. So there is some prep that goes with the math, and then the actual exam, I believe, is 90 minutes. I could be wrong, but I believe it's 90 minutes. So that is the math placement tool.
And it is timed, as well as, I will tell you, so my niece is coming to school in the fall. She took the math placement the first time around, did not take her aunt's advice to do the study ahead, and did not place into the math that she needed. And then she did the study session afterwards. You could take it a second time, but you're going to get charged a small fee. I think it's like $15 or $20 to have it proctored. And so it is a lot better if you do the study session beforehand and really kind of work through that, and then take it the first time through. But no, if you don't place the way you want the first time through, you do get a second opportunity if that's something that you want to take advantage of.
One thing for everyone to note would be is if your student is working on both the math placement tool and the Chem Prep. If they have time, I would encourage them to actually work through the Chem Prep first and then go back and do exactly what Kayla and Kim said, is make sure that they're studying as well too. But actually the Chem Prep has a lot of math in there as well too, and that actually really helps prepare them for that math placement tool. And the Chem Prep's only for those students who are looking to get into Chem 111.
Okay, so our next question is, can students still register for Chem 111 if Chem Prep is not complete, but it will be before school starts? Unfortunately, you have to finish Chem Prep before you're allowed to register for Chem 111. The chemistry department just really wants to make sure that students have kind of that background knowledge before they put them into chemistry. That way, they're not going to struggle once they get into the chem course. So Chem Prep does have to be done before. I think Kim said it takes 24 to 48 hours for Chem Prep to upload to the system. Most incoming students are not going to be taking chemistry their first semester unless they're transferring in biology. So the reason we really encourage Chem Prep to be done over the summer is once you get into school and you're taking, 5 to 6 courses for the semester, it gets pretty overwhelming to, on top of that, be completing chemistry a prep course. It's just a lot. So ideally, summer is the best time because you should hopefully have some time to just kind of focus on that and get it done.
What else you got, Kayla?
Okay, I was waiting, sorry. So someone received an email stating that they needed to do math and Chem Prep, but they are not pre-vet, just equine science. So then they assume that this student does not need to take Chem. So yes, the email there could be a couple of reasons why your student was told to take Chem Prep. They might have indicated so the only way we know if a student is pre-vet or not, if they have the interest, is if they select a button. So they might have accidentally selected that button, or maybe somebody on our end made a mistake. But if they do not have interest in vet school, they do not need to do Chem Prep. Sometimes if they're like pre-med or they want to do like something a little different, an advisor might indicate that they should do Chem Prep as well, just because that also needs that upper division chemistry done.
And I would encourage them to follow up with their advisor that sent them an email. And if they feel like there's a part of what they were sent ahead of time is not accurate, I think it's great for them to pay attention to that and email back the advisor and ask them for clarification. And then that's the opportunity to see where is the link that's off on whether or not exactly what they're talking about. So they do have the ability to follow up that way.
And just one thing to add, because we had this situation arise today with a couple students that we were working with. If your student is not pre-vet, they'll still need to take chemistry. They'll just take chemistry 107, 108. So they still do need to take a chemistry class for the equine science major or for the animal science major.
Okay, so the next question is, how many credits can a freshman take? So ideally, first semester, the advisors on this call attempt to get students between 14 and 16 credits. That's usually the most ideal for an incoming student. Typically, like sometimes you might be a little under that. That's if you're transferring in quite a bit of credit. Ideally, you want to take roughly 30 credits in your first semester at CSU. So your second
First year.
Yeah, sorry. 30, you got to take 30 credits your first semester. No, just kidding. 30 credits your first year at CSU. So when you're going into your second year, you're at that sophomore status. Just because there's some courses that require like different levels. So yeah, 14 to 16 credits. Thanks, Kim. I wouldn't even be able to do 30 credits. Like, yeah, that'd be crazy. So any other comments from the advisors? Okay.
I would say the other thing, we do have students that if they end up doing pre-vet down the line, there's a chance that they'll be on the higher end later on down in the curriculum. I, as an advisor, encourage students to come in their first semester and really just stick to the 14 to 16 because it is a learning experience. There's a learning curve to whether even if you're transferring in, how you're learning about the new campus and how you are acclimating yourself to the university and what communities you're building for yourself that are going to be your support systems throughout your curriculum, as well as the involvement opportunities, and especially in animal and equine sciences, the involvement opportunities is really that learning potential that you can take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it in these other settings. And so the involvement part is just as valuable in the outcomes as the academic piece of it.
All right, so the next question, my first year will not have a college. Will it be hard to get to classes at the off-campus site? So most classes are going to be taught on campus, so there shouldn't be a ton of stuff. If your student is equine science, there is the lab that is held off campus. That has buses, so typically first year students live on campus in the dorms. So at the LSC, which is kind of like the hub where all the restaurants and stuff are, there's a busing depot, and so students can catch the bus there out to the equine center, and that's typically like a 20 to 30-minute bus ride. So it's not too bad, but yeah, the bus is an option. A lot of times students will carpool as they get to know people in their labs. Someone brings a car, and then you just happen to become friends with that person. Like, hey, can I catch a ride with you? So getting off campus isn't too tough. Other comments? I'm like awkwardly waiting for Kim and Steph if they want to say something.
And Esme is recently involved in all this too. So Esme, anything that you have to add?
Yeah, most students usually ask for carpools and it works just fine.
Okay, so the next question, is there a PDF link for pre-vet classes that are recommended? So there is not, but what we as advisors do is look up the universities that students are interested in going to for vet school, and you can look up their prerequisites and then kind of create a spreadsheet. We have I have a binder and I think stuff on the computer, so we're able to look stuff up. But yeah, just go to the vet school websites and just type in like prereqs for vet school, and then you can see all of the things. So whether that's like 5 chemistries and 2 bios, and maybe you want to go to Pennsylvania and you need calculus. So they all have that's like a random fact that I just know, so sorry. But yes, all of the vet schools have the prereqs on their website.
And one thing to have your students start thinking about is like, what would that look like? What would their top 5 vet schools that they are wanting to go to now? Because those are some of those decisions that when they're working with an advisor, when they're working in some of their classes this first semester as well too, those questions are going to be asked. And if your student is looking at a school like UC Davis versus CSU's vet school, those requirements are very, very different. And so there's going to be different approaches to how, whether it's an advisor, whether it's a faculty member, all those different people are going to support your student. So, and that's one of the biggest things that we see in our department when students first come in is that usually most students have determined that they want to go to a vet school, but they haven't necessarily done any of that research to look at some of those different requirements. And it's really good for them to have that knowledge, because I always tell students, you don't know if I'm full of baloney or not. And so I always ask them to double check those things and make sure as we're working together, it becomes that partnership that Kim really talked about at the beginning of this presentation.
Okay, so the next question is, I'm looking at the first year recommended classes for equine sciences. Semester 1 recommends an arts and humanities course. Can that be any class from those departments? So I will send the link in the chat for AUCCs. That's all university core curriculum. So that's what every student at CSU, regardless of major, is taking. And you have to pick from the courses that are on that catalog. So I will send that right now.
So while she's doing that, I'll jump down to the next question. Could you please repeat when the students will be having the opportunity to talk to people about the process of going ahead with applying to vet school? So the session that we have set up for animal and equine science students to meet our faculty members within the department, as well as those who have sat on the CSU Vet School Selection Committee, has not been determined yet. It will be determined before school gets started, and we will be marketing that out to students to come, whether to come to the session to get that information. We are looking at, the students will be inundated, and so are our faculty members right at the beginning of school. So we are probably looking at the end of September, early October to have that session, as well as that they can get involved in the student organizations and the vet school student organizations. So I would just encourage the students to look to their, whether they could either ask one of us advisors when they get here, or that we'll be sending out a message, and we'll market it multiple times once we get that date set. What we need to check is to make sure, like, when are those dates that we can get the most faculty members that have DVMs within the department to that session.
And that brings up a really good point. I would really highly recommend that you tell your students to continue to check their emails over the summer, to check their emails again towards the beginning, and to check their emails throughout the school year, because I promise you that all of the opportunities are always sent out to students. And so those students that do a really, really nice job of your emails and looking at that, they always have timely communication and all of that.
And to go with Steph's message, that they really need to start getting comfortable with checking their CSU email accounts, as we will start only communicating through the CSU email. So those people have the ability to forward emails to one account, but they need to make sure that CSU is one of the ones that they're checking on a regular basis, because at this time, that's where we're transitioning to. All of our communications will go through that process.
Okay, so the next question is, are there lockers for students at the barn? And do you have info on the equestrian/Western teams? I am not aware of lockers being out at the Equine Center. I haven't been to the Equine Center in a while, so maybe someone else knows something, but I don't believe there are lockers.
So one important thing to remember is, if your students are going to have a horse up here, there's nowhere at the Equine Center for them to hold any tack, so any riding boots, anything like that. So all of that stuff would have to either go into their dorms, or again, if you're going to be boarding a horse, then there's opportunities for those students to have all of that tack and stuff there. I know that that's been one thing that we have discussed immensely within our department of, meaning from a student success center standpoint, is the first year a good year to have your student have their horse up here? So as long as they have the opportunity to hold that stuff at a boarding facility, then that would work. I know that some students can't necessarily fit all of that stuff in their dorm. So again, there is no opportunities for them to hold that stuff out at the Equine Center. And then one of the nice things is we are working on a departmental kind of involvement fair, as well as all those clubs will be starting to reach out to us, asking us to promote informational meetings. And so particularly the equestrian team is one of those that typically has one of those informational meetings, and should be at the department of involvement fair. And if anybody else has anything to add.
And then for the last part of that question, do you have links for the info on the Western and Western teams? So I put them in the chat. Those are all of the equine science orgs. I'm also going to put the animal science organizations in the chat as well. So plenty of space to get involved. There's clubs in the department. So whether that's animal or equine science, there's, I think, maybe like 20 clubs department specific. And then outside of the department at CSU, there's a ton of clubs. I really like to promote. There is even a Harry Potter club where I've seen people on brooms running around outside playing Quidditch. So that just goes to show that there is a club for everyone at CSU. If there's not, you can start your own club. I was meeting with some students last week and they're going to start a necropsy club to go out and necropsy animals. So I was like, cool, y'all make the club. Here's the contact info. So you can join any club, whether it's department or at the university level.
You have something? You popped back on screen. I want to make sure. Anything to add into the involvement?
Who are you talking to, Kim? Sorry.
Esme?
Can you repeat that, Kim?
Was there anything? I saw you turn back on your camera, so I didn't know if you had anything that you were sharing.
Oh, no. I'm
Or you
good.
just wanted me to see you laugh at me.
We're good.
Okay.
Okay, so the next question is, where can a student see what math class they have placed into? So your student will go to RamWeb, and then there is a menu tab. You're going to have them click on the menu tab, and then they're going to go down to records, and then there's going to be a link that says like ACT, SAT test scores. They'll click on that, and then they can see where they placed into math. They can also, right after you finish the math placement tool, they'll get a page that says like, this is what you've placed into, and that's way more comprehensive than like looking at the test scores, because the test scores thing is kind of weird. But that's where they can find it. It's on RamWeb. Okay, so the next question is, how many classes does an equine science major take at the Equine Center? Do they have some of these classes freshman year? So the first semester, an equine student will be taking ANEQ 102, which is that Introduction to Equine Science. So that's a 4-credit class. It's a pretty big hands-on course. So that lab that your student will be registering for is fully out at the Equine Center. So that's going to be like start to finish. So like tacking a horse, understanding like picking feet, really like the basics, moving into things like reproduction and nutrition. So very hands-on. A lot of the equine courses are taught either with a lab component or they're just taught at the Equine Center. So that's a pretty hands-on major, as is animal science. So both majors are very hands-on. That's one of the perks, I would say, especially for students interested in getting hands-on and maybe attending vet school and just kind of like learning. I'm more of a like hands-on learner. This department really emphasizes like going out and doing stuff. So that was what cool. ANEQ 101 this semester I know is going to be working with dairy calves. So like I think they're going to be here for 60 days. So like right at the beginning, like doing some bottle stuff, like some health stuff. Dr. Noah could definitely talk more about that than me, but ANEQ 101 animal science is also going to be very, very hands-on this semester.
But to answer the question, the first semester, the students will only have that ANEQ 102 lab out at the Equine Center for the most part, unless they pick up an additional class out there. And then probably in the spring, 1 to 2 classes that's out there. So the majority of their classes will still be on the main campus, but they probably, as equine science students, will have 1 to 2 classes this first year per semester out at the Equine Center.
Okay, so the next question is, how does our student get to Chem Prep? I will put the link for Chem Prep in the chat. That way it can be sent to students. That one is kind of a tricky one to find, so.
And one thing that I would also note is your students are getting some phone calls from people here at Colorado State University. Particularly one of those phone calls is coming from our department, and it's coming from some of our peer mentors, Bella, Esme, as well as any of the advisors. I would really encourage, if your student is able to answer that phone call, to go ahead and have them do that, because what we're trying to do is help with any questions and also, you know, soothe any anxiety that students are having about any of those placement exams and anything like that. So please note that, you know, I believe the 2 phone calls that everyone is getting is, one is coming from orientation, just confirming that everything is good to go and your students feel comfortable logging in, and then as our department just trying to do any catch up. So I hope the one thing that you're all seeing is that, you know, from day one, we're really trying to make sure that your students feel like they have a belonging not only at the university, but also in our Department of Animal Sciences within both of the majors. So encourage them to take this as an opportunity to network with some of their peers.
Okay, so I just put the link for ChemPrep in the chat. I am going to look up the DSP and the math placement as well, and I will put that in the chat. But the next question is it okay that students do not have a car? I'm going to say yes. I didn't bring my car up for the first semester and I did okay. I'm like a big driver though, so eventually I was like, Mom, I got to bring it up. So then I ended up bringing it, but yeah, you don't need a car at all. The busing system in Fort Collins is awesome. It's free when you have your student ID, so you can really get anywhere using your ID and using the bus. And campus is pretty put together, so there's not really any time that you'll need to drive off campus besides like if you're an equine science student, then you've got to get out to that lab. But the bus goes out there, so it's not difficult not to bring one up. What about Bella or Esme? How do you all feel as recent grads?
Yeah, the bus system, they're pretty good. Usually when the semester starts, they're pretty good at sending at least 3 buses. And they cover the whole university, and I used it a lot. I lived in the furthest dorm, so I always went to the bus stop and they just dropped me off in front of my dorm. So it was pretty helpful. Bella?
I definitely agree with Esme on that, and that there's even an app that the students can look at to predetermine when the buses are coming and when they'll be able to catch them. And I brought my vehicle second semester thinking that I really needed it, but in reality, I could have saved, I think it was $600 or $700 to get a parking pass. So I think when you outweigh everything, you really don't want that extra fee come your freshman year, because then you can always take the choice of living off campus and, you know, taking those further steps of bringing a vehicle to CSU.
Okay, so the next question is, are most students able to graduate in 4 years?
So I'll jump on this one. So one thing that I would encourage you to do is when you're working with your student and when they're working with their advisor is to keep a couple of things in mind. Number one, if students are taking 14 to 16 credits each semester, then that makes it more possible for them to get out of here in 4 years. If students are taking more like the 12 credits full time, 12 plus 12 equals your 24. So that doesn't quite get them to the sophomore level, which is 30 credits at the end of their year. One of the things that you'll see in our advising here in the Department of Animal Sciences is that we meet your students where they're at. So again, they're driving this. We provide those recommendations. We provide those kind of guidelines of how to get where they want to go. When they start telling us that, you know, hey, you know, I want to more manage my load with credits, or I want to start adding a minor, or if they start looking at double majors, all of those start to have to be factors that we work with students on that, you know, that may mean that you will not graduate in the 4-year time period. And so as everyone starts thinking about those are, and as students bring in more transfer credits, dual enrollment credits, AP, IB credits, anything like that, that's going to fluctuate that graduation time as well. You'll hear a lot of us in this department talk about an academic plan, and across the university, they've really gotten away from the 4 years just because depending on where the student's coming in, it could be less time, it could be more time, but it's all about making sure that they understand all those different things that they have bringing to the table. So Kim, Kayla, anything that I've forgotten?
That was great. Okay, so the next question is going to be, how far is the equine center to bike to? That is a great question. I'm going to pull up Google Maps. My guess is probably like maybe 14 to 20 minutes. That's me pushing it. I don't know if it's actually, I think it's just straight down a road. It kind of also depends on what student, like dorm your student got into. So I would say like maybe max 20 minutes if they bike fast and they show up like breathing pretty heavy.
Can I ask a question on top of that?
Yes.
So Are they going to be able to, the students, get together with other students that might be taking that lab? I know my daughter already signed up for an 8 a.m. lab. And she wants to take her car, and we're like, no, you're not taking your car. I just know what a headache it is. I know what a headache parking is, and I just feel like that she'll do better at least the first semester without it. And
I
it'll
will
help
also
with the better
say,
planner.
I will also say, as my daughter went off for her first year last fall, we had the same conversation. And knowing my daughter, when things get difficult, she'll sit in her car and she'll just like check out.
Yes,
And
exactly.
part of it was intentional on the development, that there is a ton that goes on for students who don't have a car and have to like stay in the process, or just, you know, disappear, drive for hours, you know, around. So I actually think there's a ton about student development, about whether or not, if you choose to not have your child have a car, that is in the mindset of a lot of what how university plans around. And so I think it comes down to, I know when I'm registering equine science students, we show them that lab that they have to have, and we tell them that they need to plan 20 to 30 minutes padding it on both sides. And this is the one class this semester that you're going to have. And so you just need to be prepared for it. And part of that is that time management about how to figure it out. So yes, the students in A&EQ 102, both 101 and 102, they'll have one class that they're in. So they're going to get to know everybody that's incoming in either animal science or equine science. The labs are broken down a little bit more, but they're going to get familiar with how many those people in that class. And it's an opportunity for them to really kind of form their own little cohort of individuals. They'll also see that many of them are all taking Life 102. So we see study groups that will, you know, formulate around them having these liked experiences right off the bat, even if they're not living in the same residence hall. So it is, and I would say that as, you know, the parent family support systems, if your child is really feeling like they have an issue with that, navigating that, they should check with their advisors, and we can at least help them talk through different options.
Yeah, so that first time she's going to need to take the bus, though, probably, right? Like that very
probably, and I would, and she can just get familiar with what that looks like and how she's comfortable with it. And then she should come, if she has to, come talk to an advisor, you know, about, let's talk about what worked, what didn't work, and what else could you try. And so I think that that's, you know, very reasonable, that oftentimes a student will be very tunnel vision about there's only this one way to do something. And we can talk to them about the different opportunities, whether it's the equine center or anything else. We can talk to them about, you know, there is very few times that it is a one size fits all, and that's all we can do to make something happen. More times than not, there are many different options, and you just have to kind of work through or introduce them to someone else so that they know someone that's going out there. It's hard at the beginning, and they're feeling, they're tired, and they're feeling, you know, like it's just so hard, and we can help them break it down into smaller sizes of manageable times for them to like figure stuff out.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so the next question is, what is the application for the bus schedule? I put both of the links in the chat for Android and for Apple users. Super helpful. You can see like when the bus is going to get there, which route you need to take. So great application. The next question is, should students be receiving their advising code for their orientation session or during/after it? So all students should be receiving their advising code. I think we're running about a week in advance on sending out the paper. It's a lovely Word document. Steph usually holds it up, so I'm going to stop sharing so everyone can see Steph's screen. So it looks like this, and then Steph is going to lovely point to where the advising code would be on the thing, even though it's backwards for everyone. So it's going to be in the top right-hand corner. So that's where, or Steph's are in the middle. So that's where the code is at. So students can check their CSU email, and that's where they will find this paper. If they haven't gotten a paper, I promise it's coming. Again, we're about a week out, so I just finished mine for Monday, but of next week. So just know that it's coming.
So anyone that would be joining us this week, they do have an email in their CSU account. That's one of the biggest questions that we've been getting, is I think students are still checking their own email accounts. So again, if your student hasn't seen that or said anything about it, please make sure that they're checking their CSU account, because anyone for this week, that's going to be in that email.
Okay, so the next question is, are there any current students in the animal sciences department also involved in Greek life, or is that too much? I have quite a few students who are involved in Greek life. It's very, very popular. I think, I don't know terms, I did not do Greek life, but when students rush, I think it's like mid of like fall semester. So they'll start visiting the different organizations around campus. There's some that have houses, there's some that don't. It just kind of depends on what your student is most interested in. And then I think they join. I don't know about Greek life that much, but yes, very, 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 like a lot of our students do Greek life. And you also don't have to do it, right? Like I didn't do Greek life, so no pressure to people out there who don't want to, but yes, you can get involved. I also think a lot of the Greek life, they have like some different like focuses and philanthropies. So if you want to do like some social change stuff, you can do that, or like volunteering, maybe like getting connections and I don't know, like public speaking. So wherever your student is interested in, they can go to that, and it's beneficial to them right after college. So Greek life is great. Other questions? There's no more questions in the chat.
I would say in the first 2 weeks, there'll be a university involvement fair, and that will be the opportunity for students beyond just the animal and equine science students for the involvement. I think Greek life is a big part of that involvement fair, that they can ask questions there. I think, and again, I wasn't involved in Greek life either, but fraternities and sororities have 2 different times for how they recruit students in. But like I said, the first 2 weeks, there'll be a large involvement fair across for all the different entities on campus, as well as then they even bring some entities of like volunteer opportunities and stuff off campus will be at the fair as well. And that's a great opportunity for students to start building on what is their involvement going to look like, as well as how do they start building, like, you know, participating in community options that they can put on resumes and stuff like that. So it'll be, they need to watch for that the first 2 weeks of school starting.
And just to add, even if they miss the first 2 weeks, or let's say that they missed that fair, because I know that I did within my first month here, and it's sometimes a little bit of a nerve-wracking situation. There's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of people that flood certain fraternities or sororities. So I understand if it's not something that they want to approach right away, but they can definitely get in contact with Greek life. They have an office on campus. It's in the LSC, I believe, downstairs. They're more than welcome to go through them and to look further into the fraternities or sororities that they're interested in. I know that there's some that are more connected with the College of Ag and with the Department of Animal Sciences, both in fraternity and sororities. So that's something, if they want to become more involved in, they can, and that they can look further into further down the line.
In the chat, I put the link to RamLink. So that's going to have all of the different clubs and organizations at CSU, as well as the fraternities and sororities will be on there. And again, if your student doesn't see a club that, you know, they're interested in or that are going to like, they can make their own. So they have to go through SLICE, and you can reach out to any of the advisors and we can help you get connected with that area. That way there is a club for them. Okay, so the next question is, in terms of advising codes, the student has not received their code and they're coming to orientation on Wednesday. Whom should they contact? I'm going to put the email that is the general email for all of the advisors in the department. That way your student can connect with us and we can make sure that they get their code. If you also would like, you could put your student's name in the chat. That way we can make sure they're getting connected to, just in case. Might be me, I might have missed somebody. I'm very, I don't do that a lot, but mistake could be.
More than likely, it's an email, like that we either put the email in wrong or something like that. So that's the thing that we need to follow up on. That is really good for us to know for that student.
So I just put that email in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, you can email us at that casansci studentsuccess@mail.colostate.edu, and you'll be connected with all of the advisors and the advising assistants in the department, and we can help troubleshoot what is going on.
We will say that we really like if it's Steph's student that didn't get it, because it makes us feel better because she's so on top of everything. So I just want to give you all that thought up front. We love playing with each other here.
Are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute. If you want to put them in the chat, we're happy to answer anything that y'all need.
Just a reminder, any other questions is great. And if you would like to receive the link to the recording of this session, please make sure that you put your email address in the chat session so that we can send it out to you afterwards.
Okay, there is a question in the chat. If a student has a late acceptance and has a late orientation, will they be able to get into all of the classes that they want? Yes, they should. Usually towards the end of orientation, I'm not going to lie to y'all, it does get a little stressful. It's actually been more stressful now, and it's like week 2, just because it seems like the university is very slowly opening up courses. So usually what's going to happen is your student is going to get to 14 to 16 credits. It's just going to take us a little longer because we really have to start racking our brains. Like, okay, what class can we do? That is a requirement and also that works with a schedule. So typically towards the end, we just take a little longer in orientation. We can get through maybe in about an hour. Towards the end, it might take us about 2 hours. One thing I will say is a lot of students, well, not a lot, but we have had quite a few students who show up and their orientation here, Mountain Time, starts at 1:25, and students will say like, hey, I have to be to work at 2 o'clock. That doesn't really work for us, just because there's like 5 to 6 people in the room, so we can't focus on that one student. So I would definitely encourage your students not to have any prior commitments after the advising session, because it can take from like 1:25 to 4:30, just depending, especially towards that later orientation date. But they will get into courses, it just will take us a bit longer.
Even though we're at the end of the day for registering, I think we're the most important people all day to meet with. So because that's when there's great information all day long, but this will be the session that they actually get their classes. So I would agree with Kayla to have them prioritize that this session is really important for how we get them started smoothly their first semester. Sorry, Steph.
No, you're fine. One thing I was going to add that's been really fun this year within orientation is that since we're working with them in smaller groups, and this tends to happen in person as well too, but I'm seeing it in the groups that I'm working with, this also gives them the opportunity to find other peers who are going to be in the same classes. So a lot of the small groups I've been working with, they've actually connected throughout the rest of the day, or as they're signing up for classes, they're all signing up for the same lab. So it's already giving them that opportunity to basically kind of start having that cohort or those peers. And then So I would encourage your students also to make sure that, they have all of their placement assessments done. So whether it's the chemistry, whether it's the math, because that's also going to be very helpful as we start going through and looking for those classes, as well as if any of your students did not put on
Okay, I'm listening to it right now.
the student summary about
Love you, bye.
AP or IB credits, please make sure that they go to that email that we provided and they send us any of that additional information. A lot of them have already provided that information, so that's really good, but anything that we can help so we make all of this very smooth. But if worse comes to worse, Dr. Engel has always said that he'll come in the last week and advise all students as well too. That's my joke for him, since he's got his camera off.
Steph, you really think that's a good idea, huh?
You got this.
Okay, so the next question is, have all of the dorms been assigned? I am not sure. That is, I feel like a housing question, but Steph probably knows because Steph knows everything. So go ahead, Steph.
I don't know everything, sorry. It depends when your students filled out their application. So typically housing, so I would encourage you exactly what Kayla said, is to double check with housing, but just a little bit of background information to have in your head while you're checking with them is that typically they're still assigning through the beginning of July. And part of that is some of the students who chose not to come, then all of a sudden these other students potentially could, move up on the list of what dorms that they're getting. So some of your students have probably heard about them. Some of them, they're probably coming, but I would always say that if you have any questions with that, please make sure that you're reaching out to housing because they're going to be the experts that can make sure that that's there. But typically they are still assigning dorms through July, especially if your student was a little bit later to admitting, anything like that, or if there's any fluctuation where they can get them a different dorm.
Okay, so the next question is, are most of the equine labs hands-on, lectures, equine teams, Legends of Ranching, etc. running this fall, or are there still COVID restrictions? So most of the courses at CSU, especially in the department, we're really trying to bring all of our classes back to hands-on and in person. So I think there's only one class in the department that is currently being taught hybrid, and that was just because of a scheduling, kind of like we don't want to create heck, for everybody, but everything should be hands-on. Lectures, labs, they'll be back in person. Equine teams are up and running. Legends of Ranching is up and running, so there shouldn't be any real restrictions. We're still waiting to hear about the mask mandate, so students may have to wear a mask. That's kind of up to how Colorado decides to do the mask mandate and if the governor is going to extend or not. So other than that, most courses, specifically in the department, they're going to be in person, but most of the courses your students are signing up for should also be in person. All right, are there any other questions? Okay, good question. Are horses provided for the riding teams, or does my daughter need to lease a horse? So quite a few of the teams and clubs do provide horses. So maybe like the polo team, you can ride a polo horse. There's quite a few of them that I'm not remembering, and I usually have a sticky note. But yes, there are options for students to participate with either the school's horses, or a lot of students will, they'll kind of share horses, because sometimes students bring more than one horse up to CSU, so you can make a friend who maybe has 3 horses and they're like, hey, that one needs to be ridden. So there are opportunities to not have a horse. There are also some of the clubs I know were leasing horses out in the past. I don't know if they're still doing that since COVID. I haven't heard a ton, but there are some clubs where you can lease a horse to be in that club. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So regarding the lease of the horses, or like if my child can use one of the CSU horses, is there a link for that or somewhere where we can see if they're actually still doing it and we can get a head start on that?
So that would probably be just reaching out to those clubs and orgs, specifically on the equine website. So there's always going to be like a president and a vice president for those orgs, and they're going to have their contact info. So if there is a club that you're interested in doing, you can email that. They should have like a general email address, and then somebody should get back to you very quickly. So I don't know like who they were contracting with to do the leasing of the horses, but if you just connect with the club, they should be able to help and let you know, like they might have their own horses, or they can say, yeah, you need a club. A lot of students can participate as non-riders. I know for the rodeo team specifically, they have like riding members and non-riding members. So it just depends on which club you reach out to.
Okay. And one of the things I would encourage is that's something that Ryan Brooks, who's the instructor, he's really good about informing students in ANEQ 102 when there's opportunities like that. And so typically that's one where he'll connect with Tiari. She usually has some opportunities as well too. I would just be caution on, I don't know that there's any opportunities for you to get a head start on it. It typically just happens on the basis if there's extra need to be able to ride those horses and those things. So like last year, we didn't have any of our riding classes going on, so there was a little bit more. And so a lot of times when I'm working with students, when the leasing of the horse comes up, it's usually about October and November. And to be honest with you, that's typically a really good time for students because that's given them a couple months to actually transition in, get settled down, do all those things. Because as someone who also loves animals, I would probably have spent the first month or so spending all my time with my animals and not getting acclimated to campus. So I would just caution on the basis of getting too far of a head start and making sure that your student gets acclimated, and know that Ryan Brooks is really, really good about sending out that information, as well as Tiari will let us know as soon as she has horses available for lease, and then we'll let your students know as well too.
So to be cognizant of everybody's time, this is the time limit that we have for the session. And again, everybody received my email on the card that they received. And so if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to me, and I will collectively reach out to my colleagues to help us get those answered. And we look forward to working with your child as they're coming into CSU. And we're very excited to have them join the RAM family. So thank you for joining us, and send me any questions that you have. And otherwise, we look forward to how you support your students in being successful in this next journey, but really empower them to take control of this being their experience, and that we are really both the Animal Sciences Department and their parent and families are here to help them be successful.
So John, the next meeting will be July 6th, and now I'm not sure. So the Postcard, are we not MST time? Is that what is
They have
wrong?
yeah, they have Mountain Standard Time.
So it should have been MST, John. I don't know.
Did I miss something?
Well,
So the cards have Mountain Standard Time, but did we miss? Let's see.
so I'm looking up. I don't.
Join in, John, if you're late. If you were late, we do have one more session that is